Can I ask you a question? If you had to paint one subject for the rest of your life, what would it be? Is there a person or a scene that could stay interesting after the first 3 paintings? What about 30? This is Paul Cézanne's Mont Sainte-Victoire, and this, and all of these. Today, we're going to figure out why he painted this mountain 87 times. The more we look at the same mountain, the more we realize that Paul Cézanne never stopped learning how to paint. But first, a quick introduction. Paul Cézanne painted French Impressionist paintings in the late 1800s. Instead of making realistic portraits and landscapes, Cézanne chose to deliberately obscure his subjects to bring out the beauty of the color, the composition, and the art outside of the subject itself. To many, he became the first true abstract painter. In the words of Pablo Picasso, he is the father to us all. But why was he the father to so many paintings? Why the same subjects? Why Mont Sainte-Victoire? Let's get the obvious out of the way. We can't ask Cézanne why he painted Mont Sainte-Victoire so many times. All we can do is guess. Cézanne was notorious for being terrible at explaining things, especially about his own paintings. His abstract and indirect methods of teaching were known to leave listeners more confused than enlightened. But here's what we do know. Cézanne believed that the job of the artist was to translate his subject without interference. He conceptualized art as a communication of ideas without manipulation from the artist. Cézanne did not imitate. He did not augment. He painted to try to understand his own process, his subject, and himself. Cézanne felt that every attempt at Mont Sainte-Victoire provided a new opportunity to capture motifs, interests, colors, and perspectives. When you look at the mountain the way that Cézanne did, you find that no painting could ever capture the permanent and fleeting elements of Mont Sainte-Victoire. But we can't study every Cézanne iteration of Mont Sainte-Victoire to perfection. We can't ask the artist why he did it. The best we can do is compare and contrast. So that's what we'll do. Cool and calm, we can feel the depth of perspective and the powerful prominence of the mountain. Warm, distant, and a different angle. The mountain makes a cameo in the scene with a greater emphasis on the long bridge and foreground angle. The tree steals the sky away, perfectly melting into the mountain. Greens and blues create an instant emotional sensation. Flatter, blockier, but still intelligible. Opposite, the white space creates a completely different composition. Patchwork. We're getting closer to the mountain by distance, but further away in realism. Look at the use of color here in the foreground and the lack of detail. Now look at the watercolor. Now look at the still precisely detailed houses, but the blockier trees in foreground. Look at the suggestions of the clouds in the sky. After a few comparisons, you can get the gist. With every Mont Sainte-Victoire, Cézanne made progress. He used distance, shape, brushstrokes, colors, compositions, perspectives, paint types, and new stylistic variations. Looking at everything, we have a picture of a man who was unsatisfied, who was so confused, and who was so frustrated. We see a person like that who's just never going to figure it out. How could anyone figure it out? How could anyone be satisfied painting his subject one time when he has so many unique ideas? 1 month before his death, Cézanne asked, "Will I ever achieve the goal I have sought so fervently and pursued so long?" What was Cézanne's goal? Did he even know? The truth is, Cézanne was just as confused as the rest of us. He couldn't explain why he painted the same subjects so many times, and if he could, then he certainly didn't think his explanation was important enough to say out loud. But Cézanne didn't just make art for art's sake. Despite our desire to see artists as profound and pure makers of art, we all know deep down we're just humans, and humans want to be remembered. I want to make Impressionism something solid and lasting like the art in museums, and on that front, he inarguably succeeded. Walk into any museum, look around at the classics, the contemporaries, the sculptures, and the artifacts. Right beside them, you will undoubtedly find the Impressionist masterworks. And the better the art museum, the better the odds are of finding Paul Cézanne. Because at the end of the day, we'll never really know why Cézanne chose to paint Mont Sainte-Victoire so many times. But what we do know is this: Paul Cézanne made it to the museum, and that is no small mountain to climb. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.